So, have you ever stared at a pop-up on your screen, like maybe sweating slightly, terrified to click a button that just says, okay?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right, because you have no idea if clicking it is going to, save your progress or completely delete your entire account.
You're just hovering your mouse there.
Yeah, exactly. You hover your mouse, your heart rate actually spikes a little bit, and you try to parse this cryptic sentence floating above the button.
It feels like you're trying to defuse a bomb, a digital bomb.
That is exactly what it feels like. And that hesitation, that spike of cortisol, it isn't a tech glitch. Like, it's not a bug in the code.
No, not at all.
It is a fundamental failure of language. And today, we are diving deep into how digital products actually speak to us on a psychological level.
Which is such a massive topic.
It really is. So this session is specifically tailored for those of you who are just starting your career in design, or frankly, anyone who is insanely curious about why some apps feel like an intuitive extension of your brain, and others feel like, I don't know, hostile interrogations.
It's incredible, really, how often we overlook the actual words on the screen.
Yeah.
Because, we are so captivated by the visual aesthetics, we just experience this jarring disconnect constantly in our digital lives.
Right.
We just know the interaction felt wrong or confusing or just exhausting, but we rarely stop to analyze the exact phrasing that caused that cognitive friction.
Which is exactly what we are breaking down today. So our mission for this deep dive is to extract the core design concepts from an incredibly specific, highly influential text, one that treats UI language not as an afterthought, but as the foundational architecture of the product itself.
The literal foundation.
Right. So the book is called Design User Interface, and for this session, we are laser focused on chapter 23, language.
Which is just a brilliant chapter.
Oh, it's essential. Now, for those of you listening who want to truly master this stuff and elevate your design career, I have to tell you how to get your hands on this. You can buy the book by scanning the QR code of the book link provided in the description below.
Highly recommend doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And for your reference, that link is https://hyperacademy.gumroad.com/LouisBook. And please make sure to follow us right now for more technical design breakdowns and career building content.
Because we cover a lot of this stuff.
We do. So, okay, let's unpack this. There is a very common misconception, especially when you're just starting out, that a UI designer has to be a professional copywriter.
Right, which scares a lot of people off.
Yeah, totally. But chapter 23 makes it explicitly clear, you don't have to be a master wordsmith. However, ignoring the words on the screen...
Yeah, leaving the language is just a blank space to be filled in later.
Exactly, treating it like an afterthought. That is a fatal mistake that will sink your entire product.
Well, because the sequencing of how a user experiences a product, that's where the psychology really begins.
Right.
Like right after the visual design is locked in, the colors, the layout, the typography.
Scalable geometry, all that stuff.
Yet all of that, the language of your product, is the very next thing that defines the user's reality. It's the immediate secondary layer of interaction. So you can design an interface to look incredibly sophisticated, minimalist, high-end, whatever. But if the microcopy...
Brand, just to clarify, by microcopy we mean those tiny snippets of text, right?
Yeah, exactly. The text on buttons, menus, error messages, all those little things. If that microcopy is clumsy or generic or confusing, the user's perception of the product fractures instantly.
Wow, instantly?
Instantly.
Yeah.
Bad communication kills a product, even if it has a mathematically perfect UI. I mean, you can have the most beautifully rendered drop shadows.
Perfectly responsive layout.
Right, gorgeous gradients. But if the user doesn't fundamentally understand what a button actually does, the visual perfection is just entirely worthless.
Because they can't use it.
Exactly. The user isn't there to admire the drop shadow. I mean, they are there to accomplish a task.
Right, they have a goal. Which means we need to start with what we could call the atomic unit of digital interaction, which is microcopy.
Yeah, those everyday tiny interactions.
Because these literally initiate and build the relationship between the software and you. The core rule here is that microcopy must be simple, concise, and incredibly clear.
And that's harder than it sounds.
Oh, for sure. And while getting the messages short is the goal, you cannot sacrifice precise meaning just to save a few pixels of screen space.
No, that's
Which
true.
points directly to what the text calls the ultimate sin of lazy microcopy. And that is using broad, generic labels like OK or Next on buttons.
Let's really look at the behavioral mechanics behind why generic labels fail so spectacularly.
Let's do it.
A button in a user interface is fundamentally a contract.
A contract. I like that.
Yeah, think about it. When a user hovers their cursor over a button or, moves their thumb toward it on a phone screen, the label on that button is a promise of a future state.
Like a promise of what will happen next.
Right. It says, if you perform this physical action, I promise this specific digital outcome will occur.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when you use a broad label like OK, you are essentially voiding that contract. Because what does OK even mean?
Right. Does OK mean I acknowledge this tracking cookie?
Exactly. Does it mean, OK, proceed to the next step of the onboarding?
Or does it mean, okay, finalize my non-refundable purchase? Which is terrifying.
Right. And because it's vague, the user is suddenly forced to stop their momentum.
They have to pause.
Yeah, they have to read the surrounding context, which, let's be honest, they almost certainly skimmed over the first time.
Oh, totally. Nobody reads the paragraph.
No one reads the paragraphs.
Right.
So they have to deduce the outcome through context clues. You're forcing the user to rely on working memory and deduction rather than just immediate recognition.
Right. And the brain doesn't like that.
Not at all. The brain processes visual cues and explicit commands much, much faster than it processes contextual paragraphs. When faced with OK, the user has to completely re-engage their prefrontal cortex to figure out what they are agreeing to.
So what's the solution then?
Action-specific labels. It's that simple.
Action-specific labels.
Yeah. Instead of, OK, the button should explicitly state the outcome. So, save changes.
Right.
Instead of next, it should say, add to favorites or proceed to checkout.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this a little bit. If the rule is strict, literal clarity, how do we explain that fitness app example from the text?
The fitness app, yeah.
Because the developers originally had a standard literal button at the end of a training session, right? And it simply said, save workout.
Which is perfectly clear.
Perfectly clear, perfectly action specific. It followed every single rule we just laid out. But then they decided to replace that save workout button with one that enthusiastically proclaimed, I am awesome, all in capital letters.
Right, I am awesome.
Isn't I am awesome technically a massive violation of the clarity rule? Like, if I click it, how do I actually know my data is being saved to the cloud? It doesn't say save.
Okay, yeah, that is the exact tension we have to navigate here.
Yeah.
Strictly speaking, yes, it trades literal precision for emotional resonance. But if we look at the specific cognitive state of the user at that exact moment, it explains why it works so brilliantly.
The cognitive state. Tell me more about that.
Well, by adding this highly personal touch, the app developers basically engineered a small dopamine release every single time the user pushed that button.
Really? Just from a button label?
Think about the user's physical and psychological journey right there. They have just finished a grueling workout. They are sweating, their muscles are fatigued, but they are experiencing this huge endorphin rush.
Okay, yeah, they feel good. They feel accomplished.
Exactly. Now, a button that says save workout in that moment is purely transactional.
It's administrative.
Right, it's administrative. It asks them to do paperwork. Please file your sweat in this digital cabinet.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Paperwork.
But a button that says I am awesome acts as a digital high five. It validates their emotional state. And these non-standard emotionally resonant ways of handling user communications can become a massive differentiator for a product.
Just a few words on a button becoming the reason someone actually looks forward to logging their data.
Exactly.
But, there has to be a line, right? Like, if you tell a junior designer to just be creative with their buttons, they might start making everything an inside joke.
Oh, absolutely. Which is dangerous.
So where's the line between creative personality and frustrating vagueness?
The line is entirely dictated by context and cognitive load.
Context and cognitive load. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, in the fitness app, the user has just finished a workout, right? The logical, universally understood next step is logging that completion. The context does the heavy lifting, which allows the language to be playful.
Because they kind of already know what the button does anyway.
Precisely. The user's cognitive load is low, and their emotional state is high.
Right.
However, imagine if this were a banking app.
Oh, no.
Right. And the button to authorize a $5,000 wire transfer said, I am awesome, instead of confirm transfer.
I would immediately panic.
The user would panic. The stakes are too high. Playful language in high-stakes environments destroys trust because it signals that the software doesn't take the user's risk seriously.
It feels like the app is mocking you while handling your life savings. sounds.
Exactly. So the dopamine boost only works when the user implicitly trusts the system, the task is routine, and the stakes of misunderstanding are essentially zero.
Okay, so what does this all mean for when things go wrong? Because if a playful phrase like, "I am awesome," builds trust when the stakes are low, what happens when that trust is put to the ultimate test?
That's where things get intense.
Right. Let's say the user is frustrated, anxious, and they actively want to delete their account. The dopamine is completely gone. Now, every single word you choose has the potential to trigger pure panic.
Oh, absolutely.
And this brings us into what we could call the danger zone of user interfaces, which is negative actions.
Yes, negative actions are critical.
We are talking about the moments where the user wants to do something destructive or final, like cancel a subscription, delete private data, or wipe a hard drive.
These are the moments where the user's cortisol levels are elevated. They are already likely to be anxious or frustrated or simply eager to just leave.
Right, they want out.
And the absolute last thing a design should do is amplify that cognitive friction with poor language choices.
Make it worse.
Exactly. In these high-stakes scenarios, there is an absolute prohibition. You must never use double negatives, and you must avoid complex conditional word structures entirely.
Oh man, we see this all the time with the paradox of canceling a cancellation.
Oh, it's the worst.
It really is. Like, you are trying to cancel a software subscription, a pop-up appears, the header says cancel your choice.
Right.
The subtext asks, do you really want to cancel? And then you are presented with two buttons at the bottom. One says, okay, and the other says, cancel.
It is a linguistic nightmare. It essentially breaks the user's mental model completely.
Because you just sit there paralyzed.
Let's trace the cognitive process of a user encountering this, right?
Yeah.
The system is asking a question. Do you want to cancel? If the user clicks the cancel button, are they confirming the action of cancellation? Meaning they want the subscription to end.
Right.
Or are they canceling the pop-up dialog itself? Meaning they want to abort the cancellation process and keep their subscription active.
I have literally sat staring at screens for a full minute trying to parse that exact logic tree.
Everyone has.
It's like the interface is intentionally trying to confuse you into staying.
And the behavioral outcome of that confusion is just devastating for the product. When confronted with this kind of profound ambiguity during a high-stakes negative action, users don't just blindly guess.
Right, because it's too risky.
They experience decision paralysis, their trust in the platform plummets instantly. In many cases, they will simply close the app or close the browser tab without taking any action at all.
They just flee.
They flee. They abandon the process out of pure frustration, leaving their account in limbo, which inevitably leads to a really resentful customer service interaction later on.
Why are you still charging me?
Exactly. I tried to cancel, your website is broken.
So how do you structurally fix that mess? The rule from the text is surprisingly elegant, right? The button must precisely state the outcome of the action.
Yes, precise outcome.
You don't ask the user to agree with a vague premise. You describe the exact action they are about to initiate. So instead of that horrific OK, cancel binary, you use cancel my choice as one button and close as the other.
Precision is the antidote to user anxiety. By labeling the button cancel my choice, you remove all ambiguity.
The user knows exactly what will happen.
Exactly. And by labeling the secondary button close, you clearly indicate that this action will just dismiss the dialog box without altering their account status at all.
It makes so much sense when you hear it out loud.
There's another really prevalent example regarding data privacy that the book brings up.
So let's hear it.
Imagine a user is utilizing their legal right to be forgotten. They want their private data removed from a company's servers.
Very high stakes.
Very. The interface asks, do you want us to forget your private data? And then the interface provides two buttons. The buttons are forget and deny.
Forget and deny. Okay, so if I click deny, am I denying the company the right to keep my data, or am I denying my own request to have it forgotten?
It's the exact same trap.
It forces the user to decode the syntax instead of just taking action.
Precisely. The correction here is to replace forget deny with remove data cancel.
Ah, much better.
Right. Remove data is an active, unmistakable, declarative command. Cancel aborts the request. But We have to go one step further here into visual hierarchy.
Okay, visual hierarchy, let's get into it.
When a user has to confirm a negative action, the primary negative action, which in this case is remove data, that button should be visually emphasized in a specific way to stand out from the secondary cancel button.
Let's ground that in concrete visual terms. Like, how does a designer achieve this visually so the user doesn't even have to read the words to understand the weight of the action?
You leverage established visual heuristics. So when you design that remove data button, you make it a solid, warning red block.
Because red means stop or danger.
Right. Red universally signals a destructive or critical action. But the cancel button right next to it, you strip the background color entirely.
Oh, you make it invisible, basically.
You make it a simple, subdued gray text link, or maybe an unfilled outline button. You are visually guiding the eye to the consequence.
I see.
You are telling the brain's visual processing center, hey, the red block changes things permanently. The gray text keeps things exactly as they are.
That is so smart.
Because if you have two buttons that look visually identical, and both of them have labels that sound somewhat similar or perform abstract functions, you strip the user of their intuitive navigation tools.
You know, it's like, imagine you are at a crowded club, it's loud, you're tired, and you decide you want to leave.
Okay.
You walk up to the exit, and the bouncer steps in front of you and asks you to solve a complex riddle before he opens the door.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Right. Why make it so hard for someone to leave? Precision in negative actions is fundamentally about respecting the user's exit.
Respecting the exit, I love that.
Yeah, a user deciding to cancel an account or delete data is exercising their agency. When you muddy the language, when you present them with that riddle at the door, you are paralyzing their decision-making process.
Which breeds suspicion.
Exactly. The user instantly begins to wonder if the interface is intentionally trying to trick them into staying.
And, well, that suspicion is entirely justified, as we will explore shortly.
Oh, yes, we will.
But even when it is just accidental bad design, like a junior designer just making a mistake, the damage to the user's trust is permanent.
They don't care if it was an accident?
No, they don't. They will remember the friction of leaving far longer than the utility of the app itself.
Okay, so we've established the high stakes of a single button, delivering a dopamine hit or facilitating a stressful deletion. But a digital product isn't a single button.
No, it's hundreds.
Right. What happens when you string hundreds or thousands of these interactions together across an entire sprawling application?
Then we have to talk about linguistic consistency.
Consistency.
Consistency is the invisible infrastructure that prevents cognitive collapse.
Cognitive collapse, wow.
That's true. The rule is uncompromising. All of your microcopy must be consistent.
Okay.
As a designer, you must establish a specific approach, a defined tone of voice, a strict vocabulary, and then adhere to it rigidly across all UI elements.
No exceptions?
No exceptions. You cannot mix and match different linguistic styles, especially among elements of the same functional category.
To picture this, imagine looking at a complex software dashboard, right?
Okay.
You see a row of action buttons. One button says saving, using a progressive verb tense.
Saving, got it.
The next button over says let's add, which is, conversational, enthusiastic. It has an exclamation point.
Very different tone.
Right. The next one just says show, which is a basic imperative command. And the final one says save, stepping back from the progressive tense used earlier.
So we have saving, let's add, show, save.
Exactly. All living right next to each other on the exact same screen. What does that do to the user?
It creates a wildly chaotic environment for the brain's pattern-matching algorithms.
Pattern matching?
Yeah, because when language is consistent, the user's brain quickly learns the pattern. It categorizes actionable objects and can process them almost subconsciously.
They don't even have to read it.
Right. This relies on what we call saccadic eye movement. Saccadic, yeah. It's the rapid jumps the eye makes as it scans a screen. If all your submit buttons are imperative verbs of the exact same length and visual weight, the eye recognizes the shape of the interaction without needing to fully read the letters.
That's fascinating.
But when every button uses a different tense, a different tone, or a different grammatical structure, you completely break that heuristic.
You force them to stop scanning.
Yes. The user is forced to stop scanning and actively read and interpret every single element anew.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Consistency in language exponentially decreases interaction cost. It makes actionable objects incredibly fast to process. And this rule extends upward from tiny buttons to longer descriptions, onboarding flows, and system notifications.
Okay, but let me push back on this rigid consistency for a second.
Sure.
If I use the exact same word, like save or add, everywhere across a massive application, doesn't the app become kind of robotic?
I see where you're going.
Doesn't it feel like being forced to wear the exact same gray outfit every single day? Where is the room for the I am awesome energy if everything has to be perfectly uniform?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to separate the mechanics of the language from the tone of the language.
Mechanics versus tone, okay.
A user interface is a tool. Think about the physical tools you rely on daily.
But my car.
Perfect example. The steering wheel in your car is always round, right? And it always turns the wheels in the direction you rotate it. You don't want your car to occasionally replace the steering wheel with a joystick, just to be creative or show personality.
That would be terrifying.
Exactly. The mechanical predictability is what allows you to drive safely while thinking about something else entirely.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
The personality of your product should shine through in the overarching tone, like the playful nature of that fitness app we talked about. Not by randomly changing verb tenses or injecting conversational whimsy into administrative buttons.
Right. You don't hide the brake pedal just to be quirky.
Exactly. You can have a consistently playful tone or consistently professional tone, but the mechanics must remain predictable.
Okay, so accidental inconsistency creates a chaotic environment where the user has to burn mental energy just to navigate.
Right, just to get through the day.
But what happens when the mechanics of the language are deliberately engineered to be unpredictable?
This is the dark side.
When the friction is not a mistake, but a feature. This brings us into the behavioral economics of dark patterns.
And this is such a vital concept for anyone entering the industry. Not just to recognize it, but to truly understand the psychological mechanisms it exploits.
So define dark pattern for us.
A dark pattern is a UX term for deliberately designing an interface to deceive the user. The goal is to achieve an outcome that benefits the company at the direct expense of the user.
That's lying.
It's calculated deception. It's deeply rooted in cognitive biases. These patterns exist to extract valuable assets, like private data, location tracking, or recurring subscription fees.
And they do it by weaponizing the interface against the user's assumptions.
Exactly.
A perfect example from the text is the toggle switch for marketing emails. It perfectly illustrates how dark patterns exploit the user's established mental models.
Let's break that one down.
Okay, so picture this. You are in your account settings, right?
Typical settings menu.
You scroll down and there's a label. It states clearly, sign out from all marketing and advertising.
Okay. Sign up for marketing.
And right next to this text is a standard visual toggle switch, like on a smartphone.
Okay, let's break down the psychological trap here.
Please do.
Logic, which is built on years of interacting with consistent user interfaces, dictates that if a label says sign out for marketing, and you turn the switch next to it to the active illuminated on position.
You are activating the label's promise.
Exactly. You are turning on the sign out feature. The user's mental model relies on a direct correlation between the action they take and the label next to it.
But the dark pattern flips this fundamental logic entirely.
Totally flips it.
The truth, hidden behind the interface, is that leaving the switch in the unilluminated off position is the actual way to opt out. Turning it on means you are opting in to the marketing.
It's so insidious.
It really is. The difference between what the label implies and what the outcome actually is constitutes a deliberate trap. It completely exploits the user's conditioned response to toggle switches.
It also exploits decision fatigue and what we call the default effect.
The default effect.
Yeah. Users are tired. They want to get through the menu as quickly as possible. When they encounter cognitive dissonance, meaning when the label contradicts the expected function of the toggle, many will simply leave it in its default state rather than risk making the wrong choice.
Because they just want to be done.
Right. And of course, the default state is always engineered to benefit the company.
Naturally.
Another aggressive tactic is the form agreement checkboxes trap.
Oh, I hate these.
Everyone does. A user is checking out or signing up for a service, and they are confronted with this massive wall of checkboxes.
Just a huge list.
Right. And the labels are written in dense, intimidating legalese. It heavily suggests that the user must select all of them to proceed.
It leverages the user's exhaustion. Like, you just spent 10 minutes filling out your profile, putting in your credit card, whatever, and now you have this wall of text standing between you and the finish line.
And nobody wants to read it.
Nobody. Only by stopping and carefully parsing the dense language does the user realize that only one or two of those checkboxes are legally required. Usually the terms of service and a privacy policy.
So what are the rest of them?
They are merely permissions to sell your data to third-party affiliates. To be spammed.
Exactly. The interface relies on the psychological principle of loss aversion as well. Sometimes they word the opt-out buttons to induce guilt, a practice known as confirm shaming.
Confirm shaming. Give me an example of that.
So instead of a simple no thanks button, the button to decline a premium subscription might say, no thanks, I don't care about my career growth.
Ah, yes. I've seen that on pop-ups. No thanks, I prefer to stay poor.
Right. It applies emotional pressure to force a favorable metric.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. If we look at the raw data, these tactics probably work incredibly well in the short term, right?
Well, they definitely do.
A dark pattern toggle switch probably keeps thousands of users subscribed to a mailing list who otherwise would have left.
Absolutely.
So, for a young designer sitting in a metrics meeting under intense pressure from a product manager to boost retention rates by 2% this quarter, why shouldn't they use these language tricks?
It's a temptation.
If the immediate goal is to boost metrics, aren't dark patterns just an effective tool?
The text has a final, strict verdict on this. Respect your user.
Respect your user.
Yes. These tactics are effective only if you completely ignore the long-term value, or LTV, of the user. These UX language traps destroy long-term trust for short-term metric gains.
Because eventually the user finds out.
Exactly. Yes, you might trick 10,000 people into staying on your mailing list this week by confusing them with a backwards toggle switch. But when they realize they've been tricked.
And they always realize it when the spam arrives.
They do. And when they do, they don't just quietly unsubscribe. They categorize your entire brand as hostile and deceitful.
You'll get angry.
They get very angry.
Right.
They actively warn their peers. They leave one-star reviews. A relationship built on deception is inherently fragile.
It's a house of cards.
Right. True user retention, the kind that builds massive, sustainable companies, comes from providing actual value and communicating with integrity, not from holding the user hostage in a linguistic maze.
Relying on dark patterns is the ultimate hallmark of a product team that lacks confidence in the actual value of their software.
Precisely. You trick people when you can't convince them.
You trick people when you can't convince them. That is a powerful takeaway. So, okay, we've covered the psychology of the final text that users actually see on their screens. We've talked about clarity, the dopamine of microcopy, the danger of negative actions, the necessity of consistency, and the behavioral economics of dark patterns.
We've covered a lot.
But for a listener who is actually in the trenches, just starting their career, how do you handle language during the creation phase?
The prototyping phase.
Right, during the messy early stage when the real text hasn't even been written yet. This brings us to the absolute core focus of today's deep dive, and arguably the most vital piece of practical career advice in Chapter 23.
Yes. We are talking about the pervasive industry reliance on Lorem Ipsum.
The ultimate unbreakable rule from the text regarding this is definitive. Don't use Lorem Ipsum. Ever. Now, for those who might be unfamiliar with the history, can you explain what Lorem Ipsum actually is?
Sure. Lorem Ipsum is essentially a scrambled form of Latin, starting with the phrase Lorem Ipsum dolor sit amet. It has been the standard placeholder text used in the print, publishing, and design industries for literally decades.
Decades.
Yeah. Designers use it to fill physical space so they can see what a block of text will look like visually.
Like its color, its typographic weight, its line height.
Exactly. All the visual attributes without having to wait for actual sentences from a copywriter.
It is ubiquitous. You download a UI template today, it's just full of Lorem Ipsum.
Everywhere.
But using this faux Latin in digital product design is an easy path to lazy architecture. It completely breaks immersion in the design process. The directive from the book is that you shouldn't use it at any stage of the process, not even in initial low-fidelity wireframes.
Which is a massive paradigm shift for a lot of designers who lean on it heavily as a crutch.
It really is. So what is the alternative?
The alternative directive is simple, but, it requires effort. If you don't have the final, polished copy from the writers yet, you must write or find something contextually relevant to the specific screens you're working on and use that instead.
Let's look at a concrete example of this. Let's go back to that fitness app.
Okay, the fitness app.
Imagine you are designing a dashboard widget that will eventually hold daily workout tips. If you use Lorem Ipsum, your screen just looks like a gray box containing ancient Roman gibberish.
Right. Lorem Ipsum dolor.
It tells you nothing about the product. But if you replace that faux Latin with real contextual training advice,
Give me an example.
like pasting in. If your goal is to have a strong, healthy posture and higher metabolic rate, you should definitely try this kettlebell category.
Oh, wow.
Right. The entire design changes immediately.
It does. The benefits of using real copy are just multifaceted. First, it triggers the correct psychological context for the designer.
The designer's own brain.
Exactly. When you look at a screen filled with actual fitness advice, your brain immediately starts processing it as a fitness app, rather than just a collection of abstract geometric shapes.
It grounds you.
It grounds you. This makes it significantly easier to come up with new, contextually appropriate design ideas. It gives you a visceral feel for the product's intended atmosphere that you simply cannot get from full Latin.
But crucially, and I think this is the major takeaway for career starters presenting their work, using real copy is an absolute superpower in stakeholder meetings.
Oh, completely.
When you put a design in front of product managers or engineers or clients, you want them to evaluate the entire user experience.
You want them to feel it.
Right. If you present a beautiful layout filled with lorem ipsum, the project looks like an empty, soulless shell. It feels random. But when you use real, contextually accurate text, you ground their feedback in reality.
Because they aren't just looking at the font size anymore.
Exactly. They are experiencing the product as a user would.
They can evaluate the emotional resonance of the layout alongside the actual information being presented.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Lorem ipsum is an industry standard for a reason. It's like using a placeholder mannequin on a movie set before the real actor arrives.
Okay, the mannequin analogy.
Right. The tailor knows it's a mannequin, the director knows it's a mannequin. It's just there to check the drape of the fabric and the seam lines. Why go through the effort of writing or finding real text if the real actor, the final approved copy, is going to show up and replace it all later anyway?
I love the mannequin analogy, actually, because we can expand it to show exactly how it fails technically.
Okay, how does it fail?
Lorem ipsum is like tailoring a suit on a static mannequin, but ignoring the fact that the actual human actor who will wear it has completely different dynamic proportions.
Oh, interesting.
From a purely technical standpoint, Lorem ipsum has a very specific, homogeneous rhythm to its word lengths, its letter spacing, and its character distribution.
It looks very uniform.
It looks very even, very gray, very safe. But that homogeneous rhythm does not accurately reflect the chaotic realities of the English language, or any actual spoken language, really.
Because real words are messy.
Real words are incredibly messy. They have different rhythms, unpredictable visual densities, varying line breaks.
The technical breakdown of how it fails is fascinating. You design a beautiful, tight little button that perfectly fits the Latin word consecutor.
Right.
It looks incredibly balanced, perfect padding on the sides.
But then the real copy comes in, and the button has to say, submit your annual tax declaration.
And your beautiful, tight design is instantly shattered. It breaks the whole layout.
It shatters, and it gets exponentially worse when you factor in localization.
Localization, meaning translating the app for different countries.
Exactly. If your app is going to be translated, the physical space required for text changes dramatically. A short English phrase might become an 18-letter compound word in German.
Oh, wow. Yeah?
Faux Latin lulls the designer into a false sense of security regarding spatial constraints. It makes you think you have more room than you actually do.
It lies to you.
It literally lies to you about the structural integrity of your own design. Designing with real, contextually accurate language forces you to build robust, flexible containers that can actually handle the unpredictable nature of real human communication.
It future-proofs the design.
Exactly. It prevents incredibly costly layout redesigns later in the development cycle when the engineers suddenly realize the real text breaks the entire CSS grid.
So banish the faux Latin forever.
Forever, just don't use it.
Okay, we've covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's synthesize this journey.
Let's do it.
For anyone out there who is just starting their career, or anyone who just wants to understand the psychological machinery behind why their favorite apps feel so intuitive, remember this core truth. Language isn't an afterthought.
It really isn't.
The language is the interface. It's the microcopy that leverages human neurochemistry to deliver a friendly dopamine boost when you finish a task.
The I am awesome button.
No, right. It's the ruthless visual precision required to guide an anxious user safely through a high-stress negative action without causing them to abandon ship.
the red remove data button.
Exactly. It's the invisible safety net of absolute linguistic consistency that lowers the cognitive load across an entire platform, allowing the user's brain to rely on pattern matching instead of active decoding.
Keeping the steering wheel round.
Yes. It is the understanding of behavioral economics required to fight against manipulative dark patterns that destroy long-term user trust for short-term gains. And practically, in your day-to-day workflow, it means forever banishing Lorem Ipsum from your wireframes so that your designs are structurally sound and grounded in reality from day one.
It really is about recognizing that every single word, every pixel of text on the screen is an active psychological participant in the user's experience. You are not just decorating a screen, you are facilitating a conversation.
Facilitating a conversation, that's beautiful. Before we wrap up, I need to remind you all that this incredible foundational knowledge comes directly from Chapter 23, Language, of the absolutely essential book Design User Interface.
Such a good book.
If you want to dive deeper into these concepts, understand the psychological principles, and truly elevate your design work, you need this book on your desk. Once again, that link is https://hype4academy.gumroad.com/Lou book.
Don't miss out on it.
Scan the QR code of the link in the description below to buy the book. And please, follow us right now for more technical design breakdowns and career-building content. We are just scratching the surface of what makes digital products tick.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Now, as always, we like to leave you with something to chew on, something that takes what we've learned and pushes it one step further into the real world.
Right. We spent this entire session discussing the profound psychological impact of highly engineered microcopy.
We did.
We talk about how perfectly concise language reduces cognitive load and how tailored phrases can engineer a dopamine loop. But consider the long-term societal implication of this.
Oh, this is interesting.
As we spend more and more of our waking lives inside these meticulously crafted digital environments, is the frictionless, perfectly optimized, dopamine-boosting language of our apps secretly rewriting the way we expect to communicate with each other in the real world? Are we being trained by our software to expect real-life, human conversations to be as unambiguous, instantly rewarding, and easily canceled as a well-designed user interface?
Are we starting to look for an "I am awesome" button in our real relationships?
Exactly.
And what happens when human beings are inevitably inconsistent, messy, and lack a clear visual hierarchy? Think about that the next time you tap a perfectly rounded, perfectly labeled button. Pay attention to the invisible architecture guiding your thumb. Until next time.